Welcome to Leader Lifestyle Hub. As we have set the target of completing 200 book summaries in the entire year, here comes the book number 152. The name of the book that we have today is Breakfast with Socrates. Let me share my screen. This is the title, Breakfast with Socrates, written by Robert Rowland Smith. Let us see the small information about Robert Rowland Smith, who is a British author and philosopher. And his books include Derrida and Autobiography. The current book that we are reading, Breakfast with Socrates, The Philosophy of Everyday Life and Autobiography. This is another book. So this is a 3 books collection. He popular for these 3. And he has a collection of 7 books also. Current book is the bestseller. So that is the reason we have chosen this. Let us see the target audience and the top 3 lessons for this book and powerful quotations. The 15-year-old who does not have a philosophy class in a high school. The 47-year-old hardcore capitalist who claims his sole religion is money. And anyone who struggles to leave on time in the morning. Those who are struggling with the early morning times, for them, this book will help and give few beautiful insights. Without any delay, let us see the small synopsis. Breakfast with Socrates takes you through an ordinary day in the company of the extraordinary minds. Means daily life, how it will be leading by the extraordinary minds, by linking each part of it to the core message of one of several great philosophers throughout history, such as Descartes, Nietzsche, Marx, and even Buddha. Let us listen from the author himself, Robert Rowland Smith. You cannot be free to be right unless you can be free to be wrong. This is a powerful quotation. You cannot be free to be right unless you can be free to be wrong. What a cool idea. No wonder this book has been translated into 20 languages. Imagine you wake up in the morning and Sigmund Freud is sitting beside your bed to explain to you why you are struggling so much to get ready to leave for work on time. On the subway, Karl Marx tells you that what is wrong with commuting, and after work, Buddha gets you to be at peace with the world by telling you a story while you take a bath. So these are the 3 different authors. Just a minute. Just a minute. Fine. So let me repeat the 3 authors that we have seen. The people that we have seen. Karl Marx tells you what is wrong with commuting, the driving, and after work. And Buddha gets you to be at peace with the world by telling you a story while you take a bath. While bathing also, we can do something. That is what Buddha also is telling. So Breakfast with Socrates, written by this Robert Rowland Smith, makes the fantasy come true. You will be taken through an ordinary day, but be kept company with the world's renowned philosophers throughout the history. Let us see the top 3 lessons. Even if you are not big into the philosophy, these 3 lessons will show you the practicality of this discipline. First important lesson that we can take from here is philosophy is not about spinning your head all day. It's all about making wise decisions. Your morning routine is a battle of the egos. While the most important lesson is a good way of assessing your happiness is to ask yourself if you had lived the same life again. Means ask yourself if you live the same life again. Ready for the most interesting breakfast you have ever had? Let us sit down with the Socrates and his friends. Lesson number 1. Philosophy gives you the tools to make wise decisions every day. Like most people, I used to think philosophy is just for dreamers and primarily concerned with giving yourself a headache from thinking too much. Man, was I wrong? In the past 2 months, I have learned a lot about it from books. And I have realized that it's probably the most practical discipline of all. Philosophy is not just asking what is the meaning of life, or is God real? This is not the philosophy. It's just as much about answering, should I buy these Cheerios because they are on sale? And would it be better to walk to work instead of commuting? Philosophia in its original Greek meaning translates to love of wisdom. Remember, philosophy is equals to love of wisdom. And that's all philosophy is. Wise people can look at the world and see it as it truly is. Objective, rational, and distorted. And can therefore accurately reflect on what's going on. This allows them to make better decisions by asking the right questions. Yes, asking big questions is also part of the deal, but just some of the time, not all of the time. Philosophy is the practice of thinking critically in your everyday life so you can navigate the world in the best way possible. Let us move on to the lesson number 2. Every morning you fight a battle of the egos in your head. Means every day in the morning time, you fight with the battle of egos in your mind. I would like to ask you if you have a morning routine or not. But in fact, we all do have a routine. Even if you don't follow the routine, every day you do brush and bathing. So that is completely every day that you will do. That is called morning routine. Lack of a morning routine is a routine in its own way. You either have a process or you don't have a process. But chances are, if you don't, it is still the same cycle every morning. Like waking up too late, brushing your teeth in a rush, throwing on the first outfit you find, means whatever the clothes you find, and running out the door for fast reaching to your office or work. Note, one of the best feeling and most useful morning routines I found last year is the Miracle Morning. The book name called Miracle Morning. I explain it step by step here. Which end of the spectrum you fall on depends on the outcome of a battle that takes place in your mind every morning, which is nothing but the battle of the egos. Sigmund Freud defined two opposing forces in our mind in the early 20th century and labeled them the ego and the superego. So there are two opposing forces in the mind. One is ego, second one is superego. The ego in your lizard brain, it just wants to live comfortably without stress or without any surprise. Whereas the second side of the coin, the superego, comes in and tells you to do what society expects of you. So ego makes you to live, it always wants to live comfortably, whereas superego tells you what society expects of you. Naturally, these two tendencies clash, and whoever wins defines the progression of your morning. When you stop hitting snooze button of the alarm and climb out of the bed, that is a super ego win. When you are at the breakfast table with plenty of time to spare, that is a super ego win. And when you arrive at work 10 minutes early because of it exceeding your boss expectations, that is also a super ego win. Means if what society expects of you, whether in daily activities, in the work, in the family, whatever it is, what society expecting you and you are doing it, then that is called super ego wins. Most of the time, when you get your ego to surrender to the superego, thus delay gratification, good stuff happens. So always make sure your ego get dominated by your superego, and your superego make it win. Let us see the lesson number 3. You can find out how happy you are by simply asking single question. Would you relive every moment of your life in exactly the same way? But maybe the thought of pleasing your boss is depressing to you because you think working a 9 to 5 makes you miserable altogether. In that case, you would have gotten along the great with Friedrich Nietzsche. For a number of years, he concerned himself with answering the questions. If I had to live this life over again, would I be able to stand it? This is a powerful question. If I had to live this life over again, would I be able to stand it? He coined the doctrine of two words, which says that next to the real world, we all conjure a fantasy world in our minds in order to escape from the boredom and depression of our real lives. These mass hallucinations of better partners, better work, more money, and fancier lives, however, are the signs of weakness, he claims. To abandon the herd means the group of people and live on our own terms, our own rules and regulations. We must ditch the fantasies. It's the only way to see the world as it is, master our destinies, and start making them a reality. So making the world as a reality is the needed, not enough. We need to live, not we don't need to live in the fantasy world. Nietzsche called people who did this as a superman. Those who embrace their non-conformity are not afraid to be different and start living in a way that had made them happy to live every moment again in the exactly the same way. Would you relive every moment of your life in exactly the same way? The answer will tell you if you are a superman or superwoman. Breakfast with Socrates is easily the most practical and approachable introduction to philosophy I have ever seen. If your gut reaction to all these things, philosophy is yuck, then this book is for you. And if you are a fan already, you can discover new philosophical angles. So, what are the 3 hidden gems that we have seen here? Philosophy is nothing but love of wisdom, and it is all about asking questions to yourself, and it is a practice of thinking critically in everyday life. How it will start in everyday life? By starting the battle of your egos in your mind in the early morning. So every morning you fight with the battle of egos in your head. One ego, second one is super ego. There will be always clash between these two. And what are the difference between ego and super ego? Ego means living comfortably, without stress, without surprise, living as it is. And whereas superego is living as per the expectations of society, or what your family is expecting of you, what your colleagues are expecting of you. So what others expect from you, living by that is called superego. So there will be always clash between ego and superego in the early morning of the day. Try to make superego win instead of egos. And third lesson that we have seen is ask yourself a powerful question. If you have to live this life over again, would you be able to stand it? Or would you relive every moment of your life in exactly the same way? If whatever the answer you get, it will determine whether you are a superman or superwoman. So that's all about from this book. So today, at least plan for morning routine as we are in the early morning only. At least spend 1 hour or 2 hours to make sure what your egos needs and what your superego needs are, and make sure your superego wins all the time. And remember the quote here, you cannot be free to be right unless you can be free to be wrong. Unless you make mistakes, then only you can correct it. If you don't make mistakes, there is no point of correcting it. That is all about Breakfast with Socrates. See you in another book tomorrow. Until then, stay connected.